Thobela, my name is Manare Selina Letlhaka, the author of Awakening Self-Acceptance. I was born in 1984. My mother usually say that the day I was born, they couldn't find transport to take her to the hospital. Then her mother had to deliver me herself. So after I was born, my grandmother said to my mother, "You've been giving birth to light-skinned children, and now you say this black one, you are naming her after me." So she used to call me Blackie. So my mother, when she narrates that story to me, not only did it stick with me, it also, I associated myself with an ugly, shy girl. So I was born to my mother, Mr. and Mrs. Letlhaka. My father married my mother after the first wife had passed on. So in total, we are about 10 children in the same yard. And the brothers and sisters from the first wife also had the grandchildren by that time. So every month, and my father will come back home after getting paid to bring us food. The moment we'll all go out and check the street more often if we see a taxi that our dad is coming. So everybody will get out of the yard, running towards the road to help my father. Because I was the youngest, so I'll always be at the back of the line. And on the second house from our house, then I will run inside the yard and go to the soil and just cry there, because everybody they ran and forgot that they have a younger child behind. So now by the age of 14, 15, I started to realize that we are actually poor at home, because most of the time I'll go visit my friend early in the morning to go play. And his uncle will say to me, "Nare, go back home, go back home. We are about to have breakfast." Then I'll turn and go back home. When I get home, it was like life was not really good on me. When I get home, I'll find my sister have cooked pap and moroho. So that was our breakfast. And I'll eat, but thinking that, why don't I have finer things like my friends have? Why don't we eat nicer food like my friend? So that really killed my self-esteem. The other thing that I struggled to live with was that by the age of 16, 17, that's when I started my menstruation cycle. I have never had my mother and my sister speaking about the changes in a woman's body, how to behave. You must bath 3 times, you must change sanitary towels. I have never seen a sanitary towel at home. So unless if there was, they were hiding them. I had no idea that a woman at some age, she will start menstruation and she has to use the sanitary towels. So I was at school, and all of a sudden next to my dangari, I can feel something is not okay here. Something was happening within my body. Then when I checked, there is blood. And I'm thinking, how am I going to stand up? What is happening to me? And I used the part of my dangari to wipe off the blood from the chair. Then I asked the teacher to go to the toilet. When I get there, there is blood. What am I gonna do? There's blood coming out of my vagina. Who do I tell? And I felt ashamed, like this is not normal that is happening to me. I kept it to myself. I took out the pages of the book, then I put into my panty. Then I went back to class. When I got home, then everything is normal. I'm even afraid to speak to my sister that this is what is happening. What do I do? I just kept it to myself. Then the next day I did not go to school. I went to school after 5 days. I acted sick. And After my cycle, I went to school. So every month, by the time of my cycle, I will have to find measures so that I can accommodate the situation. I'll either have to use a toilet paper or either have to use a cloth. So one of the day, my dad came home to visit. It was the end of the month, and him and my mother were under the tree. I went there because I was daddy's little girl, so you will always find me in between them. Then my father said to my mother, "There's a smell of blood." And my mother said, "There's no blood. Where are you here? Are you smelling blood?" Then my father says, "There's a smell of blood." I knew it was me. I was menstruating, and that day I had a cloth on. Then I stayed for a while. I stood up. I went to the house. I took a bucket of water. Then I bathed. I went to the toilet. It was those deep toilets. Then I threw the cloth inside. So growing up, that killed my self-esteem. I couldn't play with other kids. You'll find that my friends will come and say, "Let's go and play." And I'm thinking, now, what if I bleed? Then I'll just find excuses not to go and play. I grew up with a low self-esteem because every time during menstruations, like my menstrual cycle, it was a struggle. It was very painful. I did not have anyone to talk to. Only when I started grade 10, grade 11. One day I asked my brother for money. Then he asked me, "Why do you want money?" He said, "My friends talk about lilets. I don't know what are they used for." Then he said to me, "Lilets are used when a woman is on her menstruation cycle." Then he taught me. He went, bought the lilets, and he showed me that, okay, you put this. Don't ask me, but the pamphlet says you put this inside. Then you will change as it gets full. I could see that now my attendance at school has improved. I have a bit of self-confidence during my cycle. Life persisted, and I passed my grade 12 and moved to Gauteng. Then I was studying in Captain Park, staying with my older sister. One day, I was coming back from school, and when I got into the yard, there were three gentlemen sitting down and talking. As I passed there, one of them, he was my friend. As I passed there, he said to me after, I heard them laughing, and I'm like, those ones are gossiping about me. Then he came to me and said, "One of my friends, when you were walking inside the yard, he said, 'There is my wife.'" Then I was happy to hear that somebody saw me and think of me as his future wife. We got together, we spoke, then we had a relationship. The issue was my older sister did not like the gentleman. She called my older brother and said, "Out of all men in South Africa, your younger sister chooses to be in a relationship with a Tsonga man, which we are not allowed to do that." And my brother was against the relationship. Then the gentleman said to me, "Let's move away from them. Then we will stay together. I just want to prove to them that I'll marry you. I don't want you just to push time with you." Okay, it's fine. I allowed. Then we moved. We stayed together. And at some point, life was good. At some point, life was bad. I'm saying this because one of the day I was coming back from work. As I was coming back from work, we had a neighbor. They used to call him doctor. I don't know, he was a doctor by profession or They just called him Doctor. Doctor used to have jokes. So sometimes I'll pass and hear people laughing. So that day, he said to me, "Hey, you beautiful woman." And I laughed. But I was not aware that my partner at that time was looking at me. When I got home, he said nothing. His friends came over. They bought alcohol. They are there drinking. And we had this big sound system. The volume is very high. So I was irritated because I'm not drinking and we're living in a shack. So you can imagine the sound inside the shack was very high for me. So I walked out. I stayed by the gate. When I was by the gate, Doctor passed. He greeted me. Again, when I got back home, he said, "Why is Doctor always greeting you? Why are you greeting back? Is there something between you guys?" Before I can even respond by saying there's nothing or he's just greeting, he started beating me up. He's beating me up with his big hands, and he's so strong and I'm very tiny. And I couldn't protect myself, and the thought in my mind was, but how can this person who promised to love me, who promised to protect me, start to raise his hand and beat me up? And he was not stopping. So there was an old man who we were renting a saloon. Then that old man came and said, "But why are you beating this woman?" He came between us. All I can see by that moment was just darkness. I couldn't see well. I could feel the pain, like it was so, my body was so painful because he was not just beating my face, he was using his fist also. I slept the night, and the whole night I was crying, asking myself, should I leave the next morning? What should I do? I woke up in the morning and I went to the mirror and I looked at my face. I couldn't recognize. I couldn't even see it clearly. My eyes were swollen, my face. And I felt like I've lost myself. I did not have a voice. And he looked at me and said, "I am sorry, I was drunk, I was jealous. Would you forgive me?" And I'm looking at his face when he says, "Will you forgive me?" And I wanted to say no, actually I want to go back home at this moment. But the way he was looking at me, it was, you don't have a choice, you just have to say yes. And I said yes, and he left. I did not go to work that day because I was ashamed. They were asking me, "What happened to your face? Why is your face swollen?" I did not even get out of our shack on that day. I just stayed in until he came back. After that, he tried to tell me that I've changed. I'll never raise a hand on you. Please forgive me. I gave in. I forgave him. Then he said to me, "I want to marry you. Please let your family know that will come and pay the bride price." I agreed. I was happy because I was going to get married. My mother is an advocate for marriage. There are so many couples that today are still married because of her guidance. So I felt like I am on the right track. I'm getting married. My mother will be very happy. I am sure of that. I called my mom. All the arrangements were made. I remember when I arrived home, my son was singing "Lerato ke lenyalo la mama." So it was very nice. The family was there, my uncles, my sisters. So it was very nice. So the day of the lobola on Saturday came, and the in-laws came and paid lobola. By the time it was a process of the handing over of the yamakoti, a call came through, and it was bad news that my brother had an accident and he passed on. And I'm there thinking, this marriage is doomed. I don't want this anymore. Why will my brother die on my marriage day? And he also did not like that, this man that I'm marrying. Okay, my mother said to me, you wouldn't have done anything either way. It was his time. We just have to hand you over after a year. After a year, they hand me over to my in-laws. It was like the author of my life was not lenient with me. After the marriage, I was under pressure of giving birth to a baby. It's expected that a new makoti must have children. So my mother-in-law will always remind me, when are you getting pregnant? The other makotis are pregnant and you're not getting pregnant. And I'm thinking there, and I'm praying to God that, God, I don't know how I got pregnant with the first child, but please give me the second child. My marriage it's a mess. There's no peace. I'm always reminded. I am told that we have to go to the in-laws. I have to take traditional medicines. You just have to do that to have a child. So I had to adhere to the rules of the new in-laws. Now, my husband one day said to me, my ex-husband one day said to me, I want to marry a second wife because you can see you have been married for a long time and you are not giving me a child. And I thought it was a joke. I laughed about it and I asked him, are you going to support the second wife? Because she will need to have a house. How are you going to do that? Then we laughed about it. But I didn't know that I'm laughing about something that is happening. At that moment, he was already in a process of marrying a second wife. Something in me just said, no, this man has changed. He will usually come home after 6:30. Now he comes home after 7:30. Where does he go? One day I drove home and I came back early, only to realize that he was with the woman that he wants to marry. And I asked him, you said you wanted a second wife because I cannot give you children. But we never went the doctor's route to find out if there's something wrong with my womb that I cannot born you a child. I already have a child. So it means there's possibilities that I can give you a child. Then he says, no, I believe in the traditional way. If you can't give me a child in the traditional way, it means I have to take another woman. So, okay, it's fine. I went to meet the lady, but I believe I went to meet her to see what she has that I do not have. I went there, I met her, and I saw that I was only hating myself by going to meet her. It was not doing me any good by going to meet this woman. We left, and 2 days after, I was coming back from work, and he said to me, I'm thinking she must come and stay with us. And I said to him, over my dead body. Before I can even finish that, he pushed me towards the bed. Then he started choking me. I felt like this is the end. This time I'm going to die. I was struggling to breathe. His hands were so strong, like I tried to remove them off my neck, but I couldn't do anything. And I said a small prayer that God, at some point my sister did not like this man. My friend has been telling me, leave this man, one day he will kill you. I did not believe her. If I have to die by his hands, forgive me. But if there's any chance that he will leave me, I will run as far away from him and I will never return to this marriage. I don't know what happened. I saw his eyes turning red and he removed his hands off my neck and he shifted a bit from the bed. I ran away. I took the car keys. I went outside and opened the door and locked myself in. I knew that moment that I had to choose me. Whether I was going to embarrass my mother, whether I was going to disappoint my mother, whether people will look at me and laugh and said, I wanted to choose life rather than disappointing my mother and leave my son without a mother. So I had to choose my life. He called his brother and sister-in-law to come and talk to me to get out of the car so that we can talk. But I was tired of the talking. We sat down with family on numerous occasions about his beating, and he always said, I will change, I will change, I'll never beat you again. So I was tired of nursing his insecurities, of thinking that I will see other men. I felt like I did not have a voice. I felt like I was betraying my inner self, my instincts that always tell me that he will never change. But I wanted to live by the dialogue. I did not want to disappoint my mother. I wanted to stay and make it work. But at that point, there was no need for me to stay, because staying meant one day he will fulfill his wish and kill me. The next day in the morning, I called my friend and I said, he's about to go to work. Can you please organize a van? I need to take a bed and a fridge and I'm leaving. Please find me a room. I need to start over. She said to me, at last. I could feel her at last. For me, it was an aha moment. To me, it was a freedom of starting over. I was always afraid to say, starting over, I still have to get to know the person, get to know their moods. I'm not ready for that. But I wanted to step into the unknown. No matter how afraid I was, I believed that what God had for me and the lessons that I had to learn was shaping me to be a better woman. I started to learn how to bring back my self-confidence, how to bring back my self-esteem that I lost in the marriage, because I used to hate my womb. I did not have a relationship with my womb. I thought maybe it was betraying me for not giving me a child in my marriage. I used to hate everything about my body. I started to affirm to myself that I'm enough, I am beautiful, I deserve to be loved, and I deserve to love. That love doesn't hurt, but is the expectation that we put ourselves through that hurt us. So I expected him to love him even though I cannot give him a child. I expected to honor the promises that he told me. But when those things did not happen, I started to lose myself within the journey of my marriage. I then went on to write my book in order to release all the pain, all the wounds the scars that I went through, and to learn to control my emotions so that I may not bleed on innocent people that I will meet along the way. I know it's very hard to leave a marriage. I know there were things that I was really benefiting. I had a husband. I had someone to help me. There were moments where I was not coping alone. Moments where I thought, should I go back? Should I not? How will I move on? How am I going to do this? How will I even face family members when you come home for weddings and funerals? They'll be asking me, how is the marriage treating you? How is your English? Where is your husband? Those were the questions that I was not ready for. So I isolated myself and stayed alone and learned to heal myself when I was staying alone. Life persisted and my company was doing quite well. Life was treating me well. Within 2 years of the ending of my marriage, my business collapsed. I couldn't afford to pay my car. I couldn't afford to pay the house that I have bought. I couldn't afford to buy sanitary towels. I couldn't afford to buy soap. I couldn't afford to pay my son's school. I did not have support. I did not have anybody to go and speak to. I was lonely. It was painful. I took my son back home because I knew that at least he will have somebody to take care of him, my mother. So now what happened was, when I couldn't pay my car, I made an arrangement that I will go and return the car on Monday. But time was not on my side. My car was repossessed, my house was repossessed, and I had to start over. So I had lessons that I had to learn, that sometimes we had to let go of material things. Sometimes we have to let go of people that we knew and we have loved in order to embark on a new journey. Hi, my name is Manare and I've been through the most.